A lot of people who might not be super familiar with I guess the list of things to do that you need to do, have to do, if there's no record of it being done before after purchasing it. And we'll get into that right now. Howdy, welcome back to the Addicted Motors YouTube channel. My name is Troy and we're back with another episode of my series that discusses what you should do immediately after buying certain old or, modern classic Land Rovers and Range Rovers. So stick around. And if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I've done a little bit of my analytics research and realized that about 80% of you aren't actually subscribers. So I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button and stick around for thousands of hours and videos of Land Rover, Range Rover, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Ford F-250, all types of interesting content, how-tos, and DIY adventures. So that's kind of the channel in a nutshell. Let's get back to it. What I wanted to discuss today is, I guess this is the third installation of my series discussing what you should do immediately after buying, well, one of these L322.3. So this is a 5-liter L322 Range Rover with the Rover 5.0. This is a non-supercharged, but also applies to a supercharged, and your ZF HP6 transmission. Now, these L322.3 5 liters are becoming incredibly popular with people these days. They are an incredible bargain. They offer a lot of features, comfort, functionality, power. It's a great package. It's a very pretty truck, and it all gets a little bit better as it gets cheaper and cheaper. It's a bit of a forbidden fruit, and it really will draw in the masses and a lot of unsuspecting automotive owners. And again, it creates great content, but there's a lot of people who might not be super familiar with I guess the list of things to do that you need to do, have to do, if there's no record of it being done before after purchasing it. And we'll get into that right now. And like I said in my other videos, there are a lot of smaller and larger things to do, to fix, to maintain, to replace with this platform of vehicle that fall outside of this specific list. But these are the things that I think are kind of attainable and affordable that will provide, yourself, your potential partner, and the truck itself, giving it a fighting chance to at least survive for your ownership period. And let's talk about that first one. And especially with these Rover V8 5 liters, maintaining a healthy cooling system is one of the most important things you can do to increase the longevity and reliability of this vehicle. And from the factory, these things came with plastic crossover coolant pipes that kind of sit in the middle on the top of the engine, below the manifold. There's some coolant flow that goes all through there, and they go bad over time. This is a 2010 truck, so those are about 15 years old. They haven't been done yet. That plastic gets brittle, it cracks, and they start to leak slowly. It's not always a catastrophic explosion, even though that happens. I've seen videos. It's actually happened to a few of my unfortunate friends. But what they do is that plastic gets brittle and they crack and they break and they degrade, and slowly you start losing cool and they start leaking out over time, which then it leads to overheating, and you get aluminum block engine, and it's a little bit of coolant loss here and there, and then it gets really big and it gets catastrophic, and then it melts and overheats, and then what I'm trying to say here is it's a silent killer of your very expensive, almost non-financially or financially, viable to replace engine that it comes in these trucks. You can't see it with all stuff attached, but imagine if it weren't. And with these coolant crossover hoses, you can get metal ones. I'm not going to tell you which ones to buy, but I will tell you that Lucky 8 does and will be putting together a kit that contains all of these parts that I've mentioned in this video, so you can kind of buy it all as one if you do buy one of these and want to kind of get it back into potentially a more reliable state quicker. So that's a little side note. We'll get into that later. We've already put one together for the 4.2 and 4.4 liter L322s, but we're working on one for the 5 liter as well. Now, just like your L320 or your LR4 or your last gen L322.2 or even a .1 L322, the next thing I want to recommend you replacing is your front control arms. There's two down there, a front one and a back one. There's a bunch of other stuff. There's some tie rods and axles and upper control arms and airspace, but the big one is the lower control arms. Again, like the other one, big heavy truck, no one ever replaces it. The bushings go bad. You'll notice a lot of kind of a bit of wander in the steer. When you hit the brakes, the car will kind of jitter to one side or another at speed or coming to a stop. You can test them in a parking lot. If you kind of stab the brakes at low speed, you'll see this wheel assembly move around, and it'll just tighten up your front end, and it'll make it safer and potentially more reliable and less prone to catastrophic failure, and also save your tires and a whole bunch of other components. But again, it's one of those neglected items that people can go many tens of thousands of miles without doing, but you really should, look into that and knock that out once you purchase one of these trucks. Ugh. I can get down there, yeah. So you can see those control arms and bushings right there. I think we've done one or two of them on this truck, but that rubber in there, it's okay, but we've seen them come bad from the factory, right? Like not from 2010, but replacement ones have been bad. So we also recommend, if you got an interesting shopper, you can do your own stuff, putting in bigger bushings as well. That gives it a little more lifespan, especially if you're adding bigger tires and whatnot to this truck's setup if you plan to do any type of wheeling. Now, the next and another majorly important one, I think, is doing the transmission pan, filter, and fluid on especially the 5 liters and especially the 5-liter supercharged trucks. Again, these ZF6s, they're the same box fit to the 4-liter V6 LR3, and I'm using it from just a power perspective. If that had 280 horsepower, and these make between 395 to 510 if you have a supercharged one. So that's a big kind of power difference when it comes to the amount of stress that box can handle. So about 100,000 miles, if it's a supercharged or a 5-liter, you're gonna start having some transmission issues. Now let me drop a video of a transmission and transfer case of a 320 supercharged 5-liter that we just got in the shop that went poof, poof, poof. Now, I can confirm that is because he didn't change his fluid, but that truck only had 86,000 miles on it. So that's the thing, and that's why I'm making these videos, because you could buy one of these trucks that could have low miles, one owner, good maintenance history, but the fact that it is still over 10, 12, 13 years old really negates a bit of that maintenance history when it comes to different components that might just be at their mechanical limit, or we're finding the mechanical limit of their service, their service use time period, right? Stuff is gonna start to fail that hasn't failed before because it's been old enough to fail. And that's where we're gonna start getting with these L322s as they kind of hit modern classic status. So if you are going to sample the forbidden fruit of an L322 5-liter supercharged or non-supercharged, please spend a little bit of money and get those 3 items done. I bet you can get it done, parts and pieces, maybe under $2,500, just depending on your labor rate of your local mechanic shop. I'm going to link below the Lucky 8 kit for the 5-liter, let's call it Addicted Motors rescue equipment package, right? It's just, this is coming from a little bit of experience of seeing these trucks at a shop, talking to clients, talking to customers and various owners about what these common failure points are and what really totals your truck out. If anything happens to the truck from an overheating standpoint, it's usually toast. A long block and a full engine replacement for the parts and pieces alone for a new one is like 21 grand or something wild like that. And that doesn't include installation or anything like that, so that becomes not financially viable at all. So if you can do anything on the front end to, ensure that you don't get to that point, you're going to save yourself a little bit of hassle and continue driving something that you apparently like to drive. Now, if you didn't notice, I didn't mention the TC word. I didn't talk about timing. Now, that's not something that a new buyer to one of these trucks is going to do right off the bat if you're not an enthusiast and aren't aware of that, but I'm not going to make that a point 4 or the fourth thing you should do, but it is definitely something you should listen for. Listen to that rattle and startup. An engine has to be cold if it's not too bad. Look for any timing codes that are thrown, or check engine lights because of it. You could also have a bad supercharger coupler if it is supercharged that makes that startup, you know, rattle, whine, whatever you want to call it, that kind of throws a lot of red flags. These injected engines, they are very ticky, so that sometimes people think that's timing chain issues. This one's got 150,000 miles on it. It's never had timing chains done. It's an early engine and it still sounds great with no issues, but there are a lot of ones that, due to oil change interviews and various lacks of maintenance, do have issues as early as 40 to 50,000 miles in the 5-liter. So I don't want to gloss over the need to do the timing chains, but it's not, I don't really consider that a maintenance item that can be done or will be done by your average kind of first-time buyer. I mean, you could replace, you know, all the coolant hoses, your expansion tank, the battery. A battery in one of these will go very far with dealing with a lot of the electrical gremlins or whatnot that you're going to face with a higher tech, more technology-driven truck. So this one has, you know, lane departure assist and adaptive cruise and all that kind of fun stuff too. So there's always things that you should do. It really just depends on what your budget is and how married you want to be to this financial mistake that's staying behind it. So that's gonna be it for this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.